Hi, I'm the Book Tart, and I'd like to tell you about a few books I've read recently. I've been on an urban fantasy paranormal romance kick, and this past weekend I read quite a few books, like 4. Okay, so the first one is Night Shifted. It's a debut novel by Cassie Alexander, and it's kind of, well, if you like Grey's Anatomy or the Demonica series by Larissa Ione, something to do with medical, doctors, nurses, and the paranormal, and this is one to try. Now, it's dark and gritty, and the heroine, her name is Eddie Spence. She's a nurse at, she ends up becoming a nurse at County Hospital because she's been offered a secret position to work in the sub-basement where they treat paranormal beings. And she does it. She trades her normal mundane nurse job for this sub-basement paranormal level job called Y4 because her brother is an addict. He's a junkie. He's nearly OD'd multiple times, and just she loves him. She wants to save him. She was offered a deal if she came to work down in the basement and kept it a secret and worked for peanuts, not very good pay. They would do something mystical and save her brother. So now her brother calls himself Superman. He can't get high. And Cassie Alexander has written Eddie very realistic. The medical jargon didn't jolt me out of the story. I think Eddie is very well drawn. She's sarcastic and snarky and brave and lonely. She deals with vampires and shapeshifters, and there's a shapeshifter dragon, and there's zombies. There's a zombie named Ty. He's a firefighter, and there's a child vampire, or one who appears as a child, named Anna. So this book starts when Eddie she's new, she's a newbie, and she has a patient who's tossing and turning. He's not quite a vampire yet. He's a vampire retainer. He hasn't quite changed. So he's very old, and he's suffering from pneumonia, and Cassie is trying to help him out. She can't give him any more drugs yet, any more medication. They have a call into the doctor, but they haven't heard back on what to do yet, what other dosage they can give him. And she sees that he's trying to write something, so she goes in there and she undoes the strap keeping him to the bed from tossing and turning too much, and gives him a pen and holds the pad of paper there. And he writes A-N-N-N-A and looks at her desperately like he needs help. And she's like, Anna? And he nods. And then she goes out and forgets to bind him back up, and he ends up dying. So that's within the first couple chapters. And so then she's on a journey to find out who Anna is, how she can help Anna, and the vampire community wants to take her life because she kills a vampire later on. So there's that drama, and she has only a few days to save her life. And there's the relationship with a zombie named Ty. He's a fireman. And she goes out and there's these great scenes where she goes out and dances, and it just feels real and gritty, and she dances because the adrenaline, and it makes her feel good. And the world building seemed, I just fell into it. It's very, very fun, very dark, very engrossing, pulled me in. So take a look, Night Shifted by Cassie Alexander. I want to read the sequel. I want to find out what happens next in Eddie's life, and if she gets immune to the paranormal, and how it shocks her and loses some of her courage, which I doubt. I hope not. So I'm very interested in where she goes next. Okay, I also read Rachel Vincent's Shadowbound, and this one is the first, well, actually it's the second in the Unbound series. The first one is an ebook, and I haven't read it yet. So I need to go read the first novel. But this one is Shadowbound, and I didn't feel lost not having read the first one. I could kind of pick up where it was coming from because it seems like each story is a separate character. So, in this book, Corey Daniels has, she's working for basically the mafia. She's a shadow walker, so she can walk into deepest, darkest shadow and come out in another shadow across the country, across the room, across the city. And that makes her a good spy and a good thief and a good assassin. And so she works for Jake Tower. And Corey's a very broken character. She's had, at the beginning of the story, she's being tortured. She, through some choices and some promises, she was bound to her boss, the mafia bad guy, gangster guy. His house got invaded and she got shot and he got shot, and he wanted to make an example of her, that had happened at all, that bad guys or his enemies had come into his house, his, safe home. So he's been torturing her for a while, and she's cracked, but I wouldn't call her completely broken. She's very wounded though, but determined to get back up and keep fighting. She only has 4 more years left of her contract, and the reason she's staying is because she's there to protect her sister. Her sister has the power to bind the promises that people make to her boss, and she binds it so that they cannot refuse a direct order. So Corey, because she's bound to Jake Tower, she has to obey his orders or her body rebels against her, and she's in very strong pain and her organs can start shutting down and she can start to die. So it was a very intriguing situation. I hadn't read this plot twist before. And her job is to recruit a guy named Ian Holt, who has the ability to create darkness. And for her, she loves darkness and shadows. But she's not a recruiter. That's not what she does. And her boss wants her to do whatever it takes. And her life, and ultimately her sister's life, is on the line. So it's a very intense book. It's a romantic book. This book is paranormal romance, I would consider it. There's a lot of heart. I like Ian a lot. Ian's not planning on being recruited. He has ulterior motives that you find out. And he falls for Corey, and he likes the strength of her and the humor of her, and she swears like a sailor. So yeah, they have a bet later on in the book where she's supposed to go 24 hours without swearing, and you'll have to see how that turns out. So I'm definitely going back to read the first book, and I want to see where this world goes with their powers, and then getting bound to mafia, basically. I don't know where it can go. Can they find some peace eventually? So this story does wrap up, but it leaves a lot of things open for future books. So try this one, Shadowbound by Rachel Vincent. All right, thank you for visiting with me and listening to me ramble about books. I love books. I love to read. I have stacks and stacks and shelves and boxes and boxes. Take a look at the booktart.com and say hi. I do contests once or twice a month. I'm starting to do interview blogs, and I'm having a blast. So I mostly read paranormal romance, urban fantasy, YA. Well, all romance, really. So if you have a book you'd be interested in me reading, drop me a line. I'd love to take a look. All right, thanks from the Book Tart.